Alright, I'm going to show you how to make a spore print. This is easy. All you need is some kind of container. It can be glass, plastic, doesn't matter. Some good scissors. I use these stainless steel ones that are really good. Aluminum foil and your specimens. Now, after you pick them is the best time to do it. Don't wait for them to be too flat because they would have released the spores already. So as soon as the veil breaks is the best time. Oh, and afterwards, remove the veil completely. You just pull it like that, pick at it, pull it off, and then you're ready to go. Now, a couple of tricks. One thing I do is I cut my aluminum foil beforehand, take this off, measure it. That way, when I pick up the fresh aluminum foil, I can kind of cut it to size and don't have to be messing with it. The more you mess with stuff, the easier they can contaminate. So, I already wiped down the container with isopropyl alcohol 70%, and I'm going to wipe down the scissors so we can begin. So I want to spray the scissors. Wipe them down. Spray my hands again. This is not sterile environment situation. The spores are never going to be sterile, no matter what they tell you in the videos. Spores aren't sterile. They've already been exposed to the air. Now the thing is, remember that you can do this inside of a steel air box or in front of the airflow hood or whatever you want. That would be even better. But for the sake of better visuals, I want to show you outside of this steel air box. And also, you're gonna, when you use your spores, you're gonna put them first in agar and make sure you get a clean grow before you use them. Or you can make a spore syringe with that spore yourself and make it yourself and test that on agar. You should always test it on agar before using, because spores are by definition not sterile, no matter what they tell you or who sold them to you. Well, if they're spore syringes, they should be sterile, but still, they came from a spore that was not sterile, so you should always test it. So here we go. I know that this is about the length I want. This is the width. So I'm going to pull this out. And here's the other thing. When I pull it out, I keep it. Remember that the spores fall from top down. There's spores everywhere. So I keep everything facing down. My caps, my aluminum foil, this. I never go and flip it up. Don't do anything stupid. Okay, so here we go. I think this is about as long as I need it. And I'm gonna, and this is the top part, so I'm not too worried about that. I'm gonna show you a couple of tricks that I do while we do this. Now remember, this is my top part, so I'm gonna fold down. There we go. Can discard this now. Fold it. This is my extra. Let me see. Get a bit thinner. Be on the safe side, because you don't want the edges of your container to squash your foil, and you'll see why. There's a couple of reasons, and you'll see why. Okay, so here we go. Cut this side. Remember, I sanitized the scissors. Okay, I'm going to put them aside. I don't need those anymore. Now, put this on top. Make sure I can open this. That's where it gets fidgety, because when you cut it, it wants to stick together, and that's a bit of a pain. Again, I want to keep it facing down. I'm going to open it. Keep it like that because I don't want anything to get in. I'm going to clean my hands again off camera. All right. Now comes the good part. There's a couple of tricks I've learned with time. One of them is don't use an X-acto. Let me clean this again. Cleaning my scissors again. An X-acto is a pain in the butt to cut the stem. Remember, the more you mess with stuff, the more it can contaminate. So with scissors, you just go snip and that's it, and you're ready to put it down, as you will see. With an X-acto, you're messing with it. You're touching it way more than you should. The other thing is, don't cut the stem flush with the cap. If you do that, the cap is going to be touching, the gills are going to be touching the aluminum foil. So when you remove it, some of the spores are going to be stuck to the gills. So the way to do it is leave a little bit of stem. That lifts the cap and gives you like an 1/8 of an inch, or maybe up to a quarter. I think a quarter of an inch is too much. Like an 1/8 of an inch of space for the spores to fall and be separate from the gills, so that when you lift it, it doesn't take the gills with it. I'm going to show you exactly. Now, when I do it, I look at it from this side and I can see where I want to cut it. Say it around here to give me a bit of elevation. Now, what I do is, remember, I never flip the cap up. I leave it right here. I see where I want it. It says right about here. And we snip it and let it fall. Now, do this. Trying to touch it the least amount as we can. I'm going to move it a bit to the middle. Keep it covered. The next one, do the same thing. Put it into a position that's comfortable. Find my distance here. Snip, that's it. See? Now, put it next to this one, and that's it. Okay, you need to leave some space around it, around these three sides, because you're going to fold those. If you put the caps too far on the side, then when you fold, you're folding over your spores. You don't want that. Okay, so look at it again. I left some space. And then, of course, now we're not folding it. We're leaving it like that. See, I gave it a little bit of a curve. I did that with my fingers here. So it's nice and covered even when it's inside the little tub, the little container. Now we lift it, put it in here. Again, take a peek. See that? Leave it there. If this was a glass container, it would be better because you could see a lot easier from the sides. You could see what's going on. You'll be able to peer down the side and see if the spores have dropped. But don't worry about it because people say 24 hours. I found waiting 2 days is better. Wait 48 hours, about 2 days, and you'll get the most spores. I don't close the container all the way because then when you open it, everything's gonna fly all over the place. So just lay it on top, and that's it. Some people put some drops of water on top of the gills, on top of the caps. I've never done it. I've never needed it, especially if you do it right after you harvest. So if you can't do it right after you harvest, for some reason you don't have enough time, you can take the ones that you're gonna make the spore prints with and wrap them in a piece of paper towel. It's better to put them in a small box or a paper bag. Don't use plastic bags, and because it needs to breathe, and leave them in there. You can wait 1 or 2 days at the most. 2 days is pushing it. So then after that, you do this whole process. The refrigerator will keep them safe, but it's better to do it fresh, right after you harvest, because they're ready to drop their spores. All right, about a day and a half later. First of all, let me show you on the side. See what I'm see that black spot underneath? That's why I say that you can look at it from the side. See that? About a day and a half. So what we do is quickly take these off. I cleaned my hands with alcohol beforehand, waited for it to dry. Now here's another important thing. The one on the right, you won't be able to see it. The one on the right has just a little bit condensation in that middle hole where it doesn't have any spores. So I'm going to remove the caps and leave it in here for at least about half a day, maybe until tomorrow, and check on it and make sure that it doesn't have any more condensation, those little water droplets. And that it's completely dry. Why? Because this dog has bit me in the butt already. It's not going to bite me again, which is that when you put it in there and fold it all together, the water gets into your spore print and messes it up. So that's another little detail for you to look out for. Also, if you notice, the caps have opened up quite a bit more. Maybe not a lot, but they have opened more. Which is why we want to get them right when the veil breaks. And like I was saying before, that's an indicator of when to pick it, because right when the veil breaks, it's more like a ball, more roundish, like half a ball, like more of a dome, and this starts getting more like a plate, like a dish. So after they're done, in about 2 days, they should look something like this. Nice and dark, depending on your strain. And then what you do is fold it. I fold them twice. And then you're going to write with a Sharpie the date, your strain, and whatever else you want, a huge specimen or the most beautiful to date or whatever, all the information you want with a Sharpie. Don't press hard with a Sharpie so the spores don't stick to the top. So this is kind of, you leave this inside part loose. And this is what I was telling you, that you leave space so that when you fold it over, you don't fold on top of the spore print. And this may be overkill, but I always put them inside a Ziploc bag afterwards. And that's it. You save them, you can save them for years. Now, why do you want to take a spore print? It's your bank. Let's say you've been cultivating a particular strain and a particular set of genetics for a long time. You've been taking them, cloning fruit bodies and putting them in agar and all this stuff. And you've been working with these genetics for a while. You want to keep that. You want to conserve those genetics. So the best way for the future is a spore print. In case anything happens, your liquid culture gets contaminated, your agar gets contaminated, or you lose it, or something happens. This, people say it'll last a year. No, they last practically forever. If you keep them dry, if you fold the corners and you put them inside a book and you put that with your books, years and years and years, probably forever. Remember, spores can survive in the vacuum of space. I mean, that's how strong these are. So this will last you forever. You keep your spore print of your best specimens, and by best specimens I mean it's not the biggest. You saw these are not huge. The size doesn't really matter in this. You take some specimens that don't look funky, that don't have weird growths or something, you know, that could be a mutation. Your thickest cluster with the most mushrooms and the best looking ones, you take a few from there, 1, 2, you don't need a lot. 2 at the most, and you do all this process with 2 of those, and you know you got 2 spore prints from your best specimens, so you conserve your genetics. Of course, later on, if you needed to use a spore print, you need to put it in agar, grow it, get agar from there, start selecting the best mycelium and going from agar to agar a few times to make sure you get the best growth and the rhizomorphic if it comes out. And you're preserving your best spores forever. You can leave that to your children. I mean, your grandchildren. You can mail it to your friends in an envelope. And that's another thing. I learned this a long time ago. If you want to preserve something and you want to be sure you're preserving it, send it to friends. If you got friends that are into growing mushrooms, you send it to 2 or 3 friends, and guess what? If you lose everything for some crazy reason, you get a fire or something, I don't know, call a friend. Hey, remember those spore prints I sent you? Can you send me one? Boom, he sends it to you, you're good. Each spore print has billions of spores. With 1 spore print that you save and you keep in a dry place, you got mushrooms forever. That's it. So this is why making your own spore prints is so important. And learning to grow, you should go through the whole process. I don't care if you already have access to liquid culture syringes and all that crap. Get spore prints from your best grown specimens and learn to do this so you can preserve all that work you've done for years sometimes. If you've been cultivating a particular genetic and culling it and selectively growing it, you don't want to lose it. So learn to do this, preserve that for posterity, we could say. And that's my spiel on spore prints and why to do it. The best specimens to get for a spore print are from your second flush. The first flush gives you the most amount of mushrooms, but they're usually smaller in size. And the second flush gives you bigger specimens, and I'm not sure if it's just the size, but every book, everywhere I've read, and all the information I've looked up says to get your clones and your spore prints. Tissue and spore prints, always get them from your second flush.